Nobody, nobody trusts anybody now. We're all very tired.
Hello, welcome back to episode 2 of the Hate to Interrupt podcast, the only podcast where we're filled with nothing but hate speech. I'm going to be honest, I forgot what I said last time, but I'm pretty sure I said hate speech, and then that's the only thing I remember. So, like I said earlier,
I remember too, and I feel like it's really not the right term for the fucking show, but it's kind of funny.
I'm sticking by that. I'm happy to stick by the fact that hate speech is an integral part of who we are as a group,
as a white man in my 30s. I
yeah,
totally disagree. No hate
as a group that consists of two millennial white men and a Zoomer Asian boy. I feel like we are in the right to say hateful speech, and zero repercussions will come because of it. I'm Timmy from Tim Jong-un Productions. Who are you guys?
I'm Nick from Stop Culture, and I just found out Timmy was Asian. I had no idea that you were Asian.
Oh.
His name's Tim
there you go.
Jong-un.
Yeah.
And
I mean, for all you know, I could have been like a white guy that just decided to take on like a super racist like username, you know. So
True.
So, but yes, I am an Asian boy. Yeah.
I'm a VHS guy, Nick. VHS guy on YouTube. But yeah, let's fucking start talking about some shit. I think we wanted to talk about comedy today. I gave everybody a movie to watch, and I knew Timmy would not enjoy it. So let's.
No, I fucking hated it. And if you follow me on Letterboxd, you know that I gave it a 1 out of 10. So that
you gave it. You actually gave it half a star,
which is like the same thing. Half star, 1 out of 10. It's like the same sort of shit. So.
So we wanted to talk about Judd Apatow movies in general. I think if you want to talk about modern comedy, you kind of have to talk about Judd Apatow a little bit. I think in the 21st century, he's probably the biggest comedic voice that has shaped like what comedy movies look like now.
Yeah, and I figured that like, you know, VHS Nick made a whole ass video about this topic. I figured we can make this the official squeakquel to that video if we want to call it that. So
the movie is Please Don't Destroy the Treasure of Foggy Mountain, which was starring the dudes Please Don't Destroy, which is like a comedy group on SNL now. They're basically like the new Lonely Island. And I personally thought the movie was really funny. Not a perfect movie by any means, but really funny.
Well, my biggest thing about the movie is that when I was watching it, I was having a very hard time not comparing it to the prime of Judd Apatow's career. I was thinking, like, if this is the stuff that he's choosing to get behind now, his career is inevitably on a super hard downturn right now. Because if you compare this stuff and especially these 3 stars, like, I don't want to shit on them personally, but if you compare the sauce levels of these guys to like Seth Rogen, Paul Rudd, Steve Carell, like the core of the Judd Apatow comedy troupe in the mid 2000s, like these guys really don't have it compared to those guys.
They don't even compare to their original predecessors, which is the Lonely Island guys. Like they're just the Lonely Island guys, but Wish. They're just the Wish version of the Lonely Island guys.
That's literally not fair.
That is totally fair. That is completely
hold on.
fair. I don't think that's unfair for me to say. Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
So, give me one role where a fucking Akiva Schaffer or Jorma, whatever the fuck his name is, acted well in their fucking life. They're good as part of the writing team, but Andy Samberg is literally the only good actor of all of them.
Sorry, I'll let you go ahead.
If you look at Please Don't Destroy, right? All 3 of them are really solid performers. This is their sure, you might not have liked this script. All 3 of them had pretty good comedic chops and comedic timing. They have a lot of potential to be like able to make like the next like Hot Rod type movie or something like that. Sure, they're not going to like become the next like Seth Rogen or whatever. Like if you look at like if you're comparing them to like Paul Rudd and Seth Rogen, all of those people had like dramatic starts and they're actually actors. None of these guys are actually actors.
Why shouldn't we compare them though?
Yeah, no, I think that's giving them way too much credit because like there's a difference between like one of their SNL skits, which are fine, serviceable, decent, get the job done. Like I get their appeal the same way that I get their get the like say like the Lonely Island's appeal. But the difference between Lonely Island and this is that their movies are actually movies. Now, I don't like their movies at all either, but I can at least like somewhat see their appeal. Like when you watch something like Hot Rod or Pop Star Never Stop Never Stopping, I think that was what the movie was called. Like
amazing.
I didn't like either of those films either. I didn't think either of them were funny, but I could at least like somewhat see the appeal behind like the Lonely Island people who make those movies. I don't get the fucking appeal at all like of something like this, where like if I wasn't familiar with like Please Don't Destroy, I would think, wow, this is like the most extended like shitty SNL skit, like video skit I've ever seen. Like that's basically what it was. It was basically an SNL video skit that was stretched out to 90 minutes for just no fucking reason. Like
I totally agree.
Like
I agree.
Like when
but...
I really hate this idea that like just because you're making like a comedy or whatever, like doesn't mean you can't have interesting camera work or cinematography or writing or acting or anything like that. Like when I think of like some of the best like comedies, say something like, I don't know, like the Cornetto trilogy, Edgar Wright's Cornetto trilogy, like you can still have
but
that
you
same
just hate
sense
dumb
of like
comedies. Then Cornetto trilogy is not a fair comparison. I think
it's totally fair. Like it's because it's more or less the same sort of like dumb haha, like he said poop, like humor type of jokes. But there's still so much.
The Cornetto trilogy is not dumb haha fucking humor.
I mean, there's okay. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. There is a lot of smart writing and there's a lot of smart humor in it. But at the end of the day, like what makes those movies like really fun to watch, aside from like rewatching it multiple times and, picking up on the seventh or eighth thing that you didn't miss the first time you watched, is just like the funny jokes that they say, like in Hot Fuzz, for example, when, like the old lady goes just, and Simon Pegg goes, I beg your pardon, and he goes 7 across, blah blah blah, whatever, and then they reuse that line but within a different context, and the old lady screams fascist. Like it's funny,
No,
it's simple and it's dumb, but
you.
like it works well. Just because you have simple humor doesn't mean you shouldn't have like great filmmaking behind it. Like I feel like that's not too much for me to ask.
They're completely different types of movies. I agree with you that Hot Fuzz and fucking all of those movies are immensely better in every way to this movie. But I think this movie, a more comparable movie would be like a Wayne's World, like something that is like very much an SNL movie, which I think this was a solid start for these guys to have some kind of potential to make something way better down the road.
Yeah, I don't think you can compare this to an Edgar Wright, any Edgar Wright movies. I mean, Edgar Wright,
No.
he's one of the most talented auteurs working in Hollywood, and these guys are trying to do exactly what you said, Timmy. Like they're trying to stretch an SNL skit out to 90 minutes, which that concept could be used to make a really good movie. I just don't think Foggy Mountain reached that potential. I mean, one of the other movies that I wanted to talk about was Pop Star, the Andy Samberg thing, which I think could, that's kind of more like a musical comedy, but I think in concept and execution, it's very similar to what these guys were trying to accomplish with Foggy Mountain. I just think they fell short on.
But think about how many fucking sketches and movies Lonely Island did before they made Pop Star.
I mean, that doesn't matter though. Like they make great like SNL sketches, but this is a movie. Like I want to watch a real movie. And this didn't feel like a real movie.
I think a lot of the jokes were really funny. I think I didn't want my time back after watching it.
I thought some of the jokes were funny.
I did. I felt like wow. I'm like, if I wasn't watching this for the podcast, I would have stopped because I felt like I was wasting my time. Like I don't want to be that asshole, but like it really was just like an excruciating experience that I did not like whatsoever. Like it was so fucking awful. Like say what you will about okay. Let's think about like some of the shittiest, lowest of the low comedies, like Jack and Jill or Grown Ups 2 or some shit like that. Like that sort of caliber. Like I feel like with something like this, I mean, sure, but like I feel like when I'm watching something like that, at least I sit there and go, I mean, at least like the movie is like even someone was making this.
Your problem is that it was in the range of, it's not in the range of so bad it's good. It was in the like range of like, this could be good, but it's not, is where you're at.
I guess, yeah. I mean, maybe it's just because for me personally, if I'm gonna watch something really shitty, the least it could do is be so shitty that it's just hilarious, Like, and some movies don't need to be comedies for that. In fact, most of the movies that I feel that way aren't necessarily comedies. You know, like say something like Madam Web, for example, a movie that I saw this year. Like that's not really a comedy, but I thought that was like one of the funniest fucking films like of this year, and it wasn't even like trying to be. You know, like
Yeah, but that's they just made a really bad movie that was unintentionally funny. You know,
yeah,
they didn't.
I don't
I
know.
think my biggest thing is I think these guys could at some point be those next comedy stars that we need, because people like Will Ferrell and like I've already gone through all this in my video, but like these people are not making good movies anymore, and they're not going to. We need new comedy actors. So like people like these like fucking Please Don't Destroy dudes. We need to support their shit and see if they have some potential.
Yeah, but
I think this movie showed potential.
don't you think that? I mean, what makes me love the early Judd Apatow movies like 40-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up, This Is 40, like all of those movies that he made like mid 2000s to early 2010s, they were structurally comedies, and there was a joke every 90 seconds probably, but they still had like a lot, like an emotional center to them. There was there was heart to those movies. They tried to insert that into this movie, like they had the ginger guy had like the relationship with his dad and everything, but it was so thin. Like all of those elements to the movie were so brittle that it felt like they were just plug and play. Like, all right, we need to kind of pull on people's heartstrings a little bit, but it really just all fell flat. Whereas
I think everything you're saying, I agree with 100%.
See, I'm gonna be honest. I don't agree with this at all. I feel like a movie. Well, okay. Let me rephrase that. I feel like in the case of what you're saying, Judd Apatow movies like 40-Year-Old Virgin or Knocked Up or shit like that, where like they just, I guess they're like decently okay. I'm gonna be honest. I've seen a lot of Judd Apatow directed films, and I don't think I like a single one of them because A, they're just not that funny, and B, a lot of them just like stop the movie to a grinding halt to like deliver some like, oh, this is the serious moment now where you gotta care about the characters and shit. But like I didn't give a fuck about the characters at the beginning anyway. Like I don't know why you expect me to give a shit about this now, like
you just have no heart, Timbo. You just have no heart.
No, I think you can totally pull this off. You just got to find A, the right comedic writer and director, and B, like actually write like interesting characters
so
who can
sure,
do both comedy.
Maybe movies that Judd Apatow directed, but Judd Apatow like produced movies. There are a lot of movies. Like think about like what he's saying, like Pineapple Express, like Saul and fucking what the fuck's the other guy?
Dale. Dale Denton.
Saul and Dale. Like they're fucking like their stupid fucking idiotic fucking drug dealer and drug buyer friendship like sells the fucking movie for me. Like them two like actually like becoming friends throughout that movie, as like stupid as the fucking movie is, like is the emotional center of that movie. And I think Please Don't Destroy, like the Foggy Mountain movie, did not have that. I think you're entirely right. They failed on like trying to like bring the friendship back together through this trip. I'm
gonna be honest. I've never seen. What did you say the movie is called?
Pineapple Express.
Pineapple Express. I haven't seen it, so I can't like really speak to this.
What about 40-Year-Old Virgin? Did you see that?
Yeah, I didn't like it either. I didn't like that. I actually.
You don't think that?
I was cringing so hard while I was watching this. I was like, God, like if I would like me cringing is the only thing I could pay attention to, like because I literally like disliked almost every single thing about the movie aside from like because I had seen some of the famous scenes before. I had seen the fucking waxing his chest scene or whatever. Like there were some things I like there was no way in hell I would have not seen, before I saw the movie. But like when I saw those moments, I was like, I mean, I guess I get why this was funny back in the day, but like I'm not gonna pretend like my sense of humor has like evolved or anything. I still find like haha pee pee poo poo like humor funny, but like I don't know, like it's just the most like lame ass, just like haha he did a funny thing and then we're just gonna call it a day. I guess like I just kind of need more than that, like.
What were you about to say, Nick, about 40?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, go ahead.
Because in a couple minutes ago, you were saying that a lot of these Judd Apatow movies that you've seen, you didn't care about the characters to begin with. But I mean, the 40-Year-Old Virgin in particular has such strong characterization. Like Steve Carell's character, it's a very unique perspective to have in any movie, not just a comedy, to have someone that's he's insulated himself so much for his entire life that he's never even like really spoken to a woman, and he's 40 years old. And then you have all the side characters around him that are like these perfect archetypes of like dude bro guys that are trying to get him to get pussy or whatever. I think there's so many strong characters in that movie.
Seth Rogen is who I think when I think dude bro. Yeah, exactly.
He played it well in that movie. He did do a good job.
All the bit players played their parts to perfection in that movie. It's such a strong, tightly woven comedy movie, and it has heart in it. Yeah, there's so many quotables.
You're insane, bro. Like my girlfriend doesn't like any of the dated fucking sexist like humor that doesn't fly nowadays. She hates all that shit. I showed it to her the other day. She still thought the 40-year-old virgin was fucking hilarious. She like felt bad for laughing at a lot.
I don't know.
She still thought
I guess I'm like dead inside, or I'm a pretentious douchebag or whatever, you know. But like I don't really find a lot of this shit funny. Like, and like I kind of want to return to an old point that I was gonna mention that I wanted to bring an example of, where it's like I don't really give a fuck about like the serious dramatic moments in these types of movies. Like the only way I'll care about any of that is like if it's well integrated into the overall narrative, and also like, you know, there's great filmmaking behind it. So like going back to the Cornetto trilogy, The World's End is actually my favorite of the trilogy, and it's because it still has the same style of humor that like the other two films, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, had, but it still had this really like dramatic and traumatic. Jesus, you don't say both of those words back to back. Like this tragic like character of like Simon Pegg's character, who like is essentially just this middle-aged loser who never got to like fulfill his dreams. He never got to like do any of the things he wanted to do, and instead he's stuck in this like, you know, this asylum or whatever, you know. So he's desperately clawing back to nostalgia, you know, with the pub crawl and all that stuff. And you can see like his like fight with like the aliens and stuff are just like this greater metaphor for his like desperateness to like reach back to his old nostalgia and find that like sense of happiness, because he just couldn't find that happiness in current sense, even though his friends are constantly begging him, like, you got to live back in reality, man, you know, shit. Like if you're going to include serious moments in a comedy like that, like it better be well written and it better be well integrated. And like another example, like one of the best comedies in my opinion would be something like, say, like The Banshees of Inisherin. Now that's not like a strictly comedic film. It's a dark comedy. It has funny moments, but it's at the end, at its core, it's about this movie about two friends who just stop being friends, and when they realize they just stop being friends, it's like it gets to the point where the relationship can never be fixed because they're just so adamant and so like stubborn with each other, you know. Like
Banshees is ultimately a tragedy, though.
That's the thing. Like I just think you don't like comedy. Because Banshees of
I totally do. Like, okay,
that is
maybe
not a fucking comedy movie.
It is a comedy. Like maybe not in a strict sense where it's like people are getting kicked in the balls, but like it's still a comedy.
Even like In Bruges, which I fucking love In Bruges. I would call it a dark comedy, sure, but I wouldn't even I don't consider that a comedy. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, Judd. If we're looking at like the template of Judd Apatow isms, like that kind of lane of comedy,
Apatow, but like
that's much. I mean, Martin McDonagh, I think he makes like, you know, it depends on the movie. Like In Bruges, I think is more of a comedy than Banshees. Banshees has funny moments. It's kind of like a tragic comedy, you know, like Succession,
which I only brought up because it's still technically a comedy, you know. Like I don't know. So,
but like, okay, so I want to loop back to the Judd Apatow stuff, but like, give me like 3 examples of comedies that are not fucking Edgar Wright or fucking Martin McDonagh.
I love I love The Nice Guys. That's a comedy. Do you consider that a comedy? Yeah, I think The Nice Guys is hilarious. I quite love The Nice Guys. Just Shane Black, just in general, like the way he approaches comedy in his like buddy cop action movies, like I think is really well integrated. I think they're really fun. Let's see. Let me look at comedies like this year, because I wrote a bunch of just like comedies that came out in the 2020s. The comedies that I particularly liked. So Triangle of Sadness, I think that's another comedy. That's more of a comedy than Banshees of Inisherin. That's a very hilarious film, and I quite enjoyed it. And there's still that deep thematic stuff that you can get out of the film, even if you know, like at the end of the day, the film is still about like rich people like throwing up in a ship and shit like that, you know. But it's like it's still a very funny film that gets its point across, you know. Like Bottoms is another film that I quite enjoyed. I know that wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but I found it really funny. You know, Barbie, like
Bottoms is the first example you've given me that I actually consider a comedy, by the way.
Barbie, like the Barbenheimer, you know, like Barbie was pretty funny. I quite enjoyed that one. I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting. I consider that a comedy.
I liked Barbie decently too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Borat 2, another like comedy, 2020s comedy. I thought that was hilarious.
Borat 1, I think
like Borat 1?
Borat 1 is the best comedy movie ever made, if you ask me.
I quite like Borat 1. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying Borat 2 is as
more than Borat 1.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying Borat 2 is as good as Borat 1, but I still found Borat 2 like entertaining and funny for what it's trying to go for. You know,
definitely.
Nick,
yeah.
I want to hear how would you rate the Judd Apatow movie? I want like the top 10 or so.
Okay, so I made a list of the 15 most notable Judd Apatow movies. Some of them he wrote and directed, some of them he just wrote, or some of them he just produced. But starting at 15, Trainwreck, the Amy Schumer movie, which I thought was decently funny. John Cena was fucking hilarious in that movie. Step Brothers. Step Brothers at 14 might be kind of a controversial placement. I don't know about you guys. I'd probably be on Timmy's side with this because I watched Step Brothers a couple years ago, and
did you ever watch it when it came out?
Oh yeah, of course. I watched it constantly when I was a kid, but when I watched it again, it was like it crossed the line of being just a little bit too juvenile and stupid for me to laugh at it now.
Oh, it's so juvenile and stupid. I fucking hate Step Brothers so fucking much. Like, it's like the whole movie is just like, isn't it funny that Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly like are man babies and scream for 2 hours? That's literally the whole movie. It is
funny that they're man babies. That's the whole point. It is funny that they're fucking man babies.
I think also it might be that it's just too ingrained in me in this point. Like I've seen it so many times as a kid. Dude, that Step Brothers and Superbad movies like that, they like formed my conception of what is funny as a kid. And I think it's definitely different for Tim because he's 7 years younger than us. So we literally grew up with these movies, and Tim's watching them
in like genre comedies instead of more so like.
And I'm probably watching them now. Like I don't really understand, but at the time, like in the mid 2000s when they came out, that was culture. Like that was literally the culture of comedy, was what Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen and all those guys were making.
Hangover is like a real movie and was funny at the time.
I didn't care much for the Hangover movies, but yeah. So
yeah, but I mean,
no, I understand what. Yeah, I don't understand what you're saying because like these movies definitely like captured like a specific like era of comedy that I'm sure like. You guys definitely grew up with this because I didn't realize the 7-year age difference thing, but you're definitely right because I was probably like 7 like when like say like something like Knocked Up came out, so like there was no way in hell I was going to be able to watch it when I was like 7 years old or whatever. So like when I think of like my like sense of humor, in all honesty, a lot of what I find funny kind of comes from stuff like animation, you know, like a lot of those like early Cartoon Network shows like Chowder and like Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, like those were the things that really cemented my sense of humor. Like those were those were like the kinds of things where it's like, oh, wacky over the top like, you know, shenanigans is hilarious. Now I know
that sounds like Step Brothers.
No, well, okay. I was going to make the difference. Well, let me say that there's a difference between something like Chowder and then like something like Step Brothers. Like I feel like when it comes to like the over the top wacky humor, I think it totally fits something like Chowder, where it's like, oh, the main character is a purple bear cat sheep thing, fucking whatever, you know, like, and it's like him like getting into all these shenanigans. It's really hard to describe it without like talking about episodes of Chowder, which I know you guys have probably never seen, but it's like it's a lot of like visual humor that I get so much out of that I find hilarious.
Or even like, like even like Regular Show, like a more common show. Like,
Regular Show is another great example. It's basically just almost kind of like an Adult Swim shitpost pretending to be like a Cartoon Network show for kids. You know, like I find a lot of like
I don't understand why that is. I feel like all cartoons are almost a bad example because they're still very much like on the like silly tiki humor.
I don't know what to I know what you're saying, and it's really hard for me to describe it. I think like when I watch
Maybe
something
we
like
just have to
regular
loop
show,
back to this, and maybe we should do an episode on like animation that we grew up on, because I feel like that's an interesting topic.
Wait,
No,
Timmy,
we're making it.
how old were you when you watched Step Brothers for the first time?
How old I was when I was watched Step Brothers for the first time?
Yeah.
I was probably like 17, 18 when I saw it, and I didn't really care much for it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
but I don't want to make it seem like I'm like this pretentious douchebag who, like, at the age of like 2, I was just like, yes, this lowly comedy isn't enough for me. Like I'm much more sophisticated when it comes to my sense of it. Like, it's none of that shit.
No,
you know,
it's
yeah.
There's a saying that, you know, comedy ages like
I'm
milk.
gonna say that though.
You know, have you guys
Yeah.
heard that? Comedy ages like milk. Like what is funny to even, you know, millennials, what was coming out, the Judd Apatow movies that were coming out, Zoomers that watch them in their late teens or even their, you know, mid-teens, they're not going to find it funny just because culture has shifted so much. Like, what is funny, especially nowadays, what is funny changes like every fucking couple months, you know?
Yeah.
So I totally
like,
understand why you wouldn't like it.
I think time can make you feel uncomfortable laughing at something.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yes, yeah. So,
But
and I don't want to make it like
there's,
sorry, go ahead.
But there's movies like Groundhog Day. There's timeless classics, like comedy classics, that are always going to be good. Like, good comedy is not going to age.
All right,
and I think I'm not going to.
Let me.
I agree.
We'll move on. Let's move down the list. So Pop Star Never Stop. I think it's Pop. I didn't write it down. Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping.
Yeah,
did you guys see that?
I didn't care for it.
I haven't seen that movie in a couple years, but there are a couple songs in that movie that are fucking hilarious. Like, did you guys ever see the Macklemore?
I wanna fuck you like to fuck Bin Laden.
the Macklemore one where he's just telling everyone he's not gay constantly is fucking hilarious. And
what was the one where oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Get him to the Greek at 12, which I personally think that Jonah Hill, Aldous Snow, you know, Russell Brand, that combo was pretty good. They got a lot of pay dirt out of that.
Kind of like dated. That one movie is dated. Like, that's one of those, like, at the time it was kind of funny. I don't know if I could go back and watch it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a couple of years, but This is 40 at 11, which I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but this is kind of the culmination of what I was talking about before, like the heart.
It was
in the Judd Apatow
more
movies.
serious.
Yeah, it was.
Movies.
Yeah, it was a little
that's
bit.
That's the squeakquel to 40. Not that one. Knocked Up, right?
Yeah, same characters from Knocked Up, and then Anchorman at 10, which I kind of have the same problem with Anchorman as I did with Step Brothers. That movie is basically just one quotable after another with characters.
Anchorman I can agree with more than I can Step Brothers in that regard. Like, it doesn't hold up as well.
Anchorman is one of the few. I can't even call that a Judd Apatow film. That's more of a what's his name?
Will Ferrell.
I know you're talking about.
No, the director. What's his
Adam
name?
McKay.
Adam McKay. Yeah, it's more of an Adam McKay film. That one is one of the few ones of like the Judd Apatow produced ones where I'm like, I guess I don't hate this. I guess I don't hate myself while watching this one, because this one I felt like was more like more self-aware about how stupid it is, you know, like when you watch like all the news reporters,
it's almost more like a spoof of like just like a time period.
Yeah, it almost like makes fun of the idea of like there being any serious moments to like rein everyone in, like any sort of like dramatic third act, because like the second half of the movie just devolves into like a bunch of news anchors like beating the shit out of each other, like in this like epic gladiator match. Like, the movie doesn't really give a shit about like realism or drama or seriousness. It just like it's almost kind of like a shit post like kind of movie, you know.
I can agree. I like Anchorman, but I personally would watch Step Brothers over watching Anchorman.
That's fine. Yeah. So I think like Anchorman is like the movie where it's like it's still restrained enough where it's like I can deal with like the cringe, but once you get to like Adam McKay's later films like Anchorman 2 or Step Brothers or like his serious movies, quote unquote, it's where I just cannot deal with like his style or his sensibilities or his like approach to storytelling. Yeah, Adam McKay, because like I felt like
Vice was fucking amazing. What are you on?
I thought Vice was like the most boring ass shit ever.
What?
I'm a
fucking
okay,
love
here's
Vice.
some backstory about myself. I'm a political science major, so like on paper I should find this interesting, and I still found it the most dull ass shit ever. Like the cutaway gags, which are, let's be real, are just no different from like fucking Family Guy like gags where it's like, remember the time when this shit happened, you know, like where it's like where they do like weird ass cutaway gags like every time they're introducing characters or whatever. It's like, I'm like, either just give me a normal biopic or give me a shit post. Don't do both. Like, this is so fucking stupid. And it's just really boring, too. Like, I don't know how you could possibly make the life and the vice presidency of Dick Cheney the most dull and uninspiring shit
Vice
ever,
was
you
not
know?
boring, bro. Vice was
Like,
not boring.
this
You're-
is the
you're out of your
exact
fucking
same
mind.
thing that I felt about, like, what was the stock market crash movie he did? The Big Short,
Short.
yeah.
The Big
It's
Short
the
was kind of boring for me.
It's
too,
the same
but-
shit. It's like, I don't know how you find this, like, topic that, like, is so complex and so like detailed to understand, and your best way to
What do
go
you think,
about
Nick?
making this topic interesting is just, what if Selena Gomez did this shit like while she explained this shit? Like, are you serious
I need
right
to- I
now?
need to
Like,
stand
Wait,
Yeah.
are,
What did you think
you
of
talking
Vice?
about? You're talking about the Margot Robbie cutaway scenes in The Big Short.
I'm talking about like those, yeah, like that sort of stuff. Because like to me, like I don't see what the difference is between that and then like a stupid like Family Guy cutaway gag where it's just remember the time when like PETA did this or whatever? You know,
I
it's
need
like
to hear
the
Nick's
exact
opinion
same
on this.
thing.
No, it's
I
not.
need
No,
to-
because the Family Guy cutaways are. You guys remember the South Park episode where the SEALs are like, oh, they'll put one ball. Michael Jackson does an action. It's all just very random. It's random, LOL, XD, dumb, random shit. With The
Yep.
Big Short and Vice, the cutaways were always in service of character development. So I don't think you could really compare it to Family Guy, because Family Guy is just for a cheap laugh. Where, you know, The Big Short especially, like they're talking about extremely complex like financial terms and concepts that normal
And they
people
almost, like,
don't fucking
simplify it for, like,
understand.
normies, yeah.
You had like he had to do that because no one would have understood anything that's going on if you didn't explain it.
I'm sorry. I think that is such a bullshit thing to say, because like Wolf of Wall Street did the same shit, and it just didn't bother. It was just like, there is literally a scene where like Leonardo DiCaprio just goes, "You don't give a fuck about what I'm saying. Like, you're just here to see tits, asses, and like all the money and like raining down or whatever." You know,
but
if the
Wolf
movie
of
had
Wall
that's a
Street does the
completely
same
different
thing.
film.
Wolf of Wall Street does the same thing. At one point, you're right. He says like, "Oh, you don't even care," but they know when you make a movie like that, financial concepts that are so obscure and fucking Byzantine that like you have to understand. You have to give the audience some level of understanding by breaking the fourth wall a little bit. It's a choice. It's a choice to do, but I think it helps people understand.
But I feel like even in Wolf of Wall Street, there were still scenes where like the way they presented it still made sense. Like that one scene that everyone like knows by heart, the whole sell me this pen or whatever, you know, where like the Shane from Walking Dead is just like, okay, you want me to sell you this pen? Here, write your name down, blah blah blah. Like Scorsese presented in a way that made sense and still was like entertaining and engaging. Like, I don't need
But
some
they
like
weren't
shitty
they
like
weren't diving into.
I don't
just
need some-
sales and no, hold on, sales in
Okay.
general. Like general sales is not a fucking hard topic for people to understand.
Yeah.
He's talking about actual like financial trading and shit like that. Like that's a much harder topic for the general population to understand than just making a sale. Everybody's been approached by a salesperson. That's not a hard topic to explain to the audience.
Yeah, the concepts
Yes.
being discussed in Wolf of Wall Street, like his financial crimes, I would say are much easier to understand than the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008. I think
guess that's fair.
you needed some of that fourth wall breaking. I mean, you know, I understand why you don't like it.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, we're gonna cut to Margot Robbie in a hot tub to explain this to you. It's like, okay, you can take it or leave it. I take it or leave it, you know. But I'm not gonna lie and say that it wasn't like as a viewer it was helpful, because when I watched that movie, I obviously like wasn't really read up on the specifics of what actually happened, and I would say that most people aren't either. And they even talk about in the movie that these concepts are designed to confuse people, you know. It's supposed to be confusing because they don't want normal people to understand it. So breaking it down when you're making a movie about it, I think, is totally fair game.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to, yeah, like, it is a take it or leave it type thing. I don't really, again, like, maybe it's unfair to me to say it's like a Family Guy cutaway gag, but to me, it just feels like the exact same sort of shit, you know, like, because at that point, if you're going to be this obnoxious to like communicate information to me, I'd rather just watch a documentary at that point. I'd rather just watch a documentary about like the Wall Street crash of 2008, or like not Chevy Chase, what the fuck was his name?
Chevy Chase.
No, the Dick Cheney. Sorry, I don't know how. I guess it was easy for me to get, because they look the same. They're all big fat white, you know.
They do look
80-year-olds.
alike. Damn, they do look
like,
alike.
I'd
They
rather
should have
just
got,
watch it.
got Chevy Chase to play it instead of
They
fucking.
honestly
Christian
should
Bale.
have. Yeah, but honestly, like, I'd
Christian
rather
Bale
just
killed
watch
it,
it.
bro. Y'all are you're insane, bro.
No, he gave a good performance, but it's just like, if you're going to be this obnoxious to communicate information to me, I'd rather just watch a documentary about Dick Cheney's vice
But
presidency than actually like sit through this shit.
Documentaries. I don't like documentaries.
Well,
to me, the movie was. Really
I do. I'm sorry.
informational
Okay,
and
I don't want to be.
You know
I don't
what I
want to
mean?
continue. I don't want to continue being that guy, but I do like
but to even say
documentaries.
the movie
Alright,
was
let-
like
let-
not
let me-
well
let me
made
go-
is crazy.
Let me go down the
Yeah,
list.
keep
Well,
going through your list.
Continue, yeah.
Have you guys seen Funny People? That's my 8.
I love funny people,
Yeah.
and
I haven't
everyone I
seen
talk
it.
to hates it. Everyone I talk to fucking hates.
I think that's a really, really great movie. And then I got Pineapple Express. Oh no, Funny People is 9. Pineapple Express at 8.
I wouldn't consider that a Judd Apatow movie, but I fucking love.
Like, yeah, I added anything that he produced, anything that he's like vaguely associated with. I assume that he probably had a large hand in producing it. So, and
Sure,
then
yeah.
Knocked Up at 7. I really love Knocked Up. Forgetting Sarah
Love Knocked
Marshall,
Up.
I think, is a sleeper pick that you don't realize how funny and influential that movie is until you watch it again. There are so many great moments in that movie. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
I actually didn't like it when I watched it when I was younger, and then I watched it more recently, and it kind of grew on me a lot more. I think I
it's
didn't
fine.
appreciate. I think I didn't appreciate it whenever I was.
It's getting
a kid,
kind
for
of
some reason.
hard to believe things are going to get better.
I think I remember I only saw it because I was watching How I Met Your Mother like around that time, and I was like I really liked Jason Segel's like presence as a comedic actor. So at that point, I was just watching anything that Jason Segel was in, and Forgetting Sarah Marshall was like one of those things, and I thought it was fine. Like, I didn't hate it as much as like some of these other Judd Apatow films, but like it's not really a movie for me. I guess I'll just say that. So, but I get the appeal. I understand. Yeah.
So then I have 40-Year-Old Virgin at 5, which this top 5 is pretty interchangeable. I love all these movies. I think 40-Year-Old Virgin is probably one of the best comedy movies of the 2000s. And I didn't know that Judd Apatow had a hand in producing The Cable Guy. I don't know if you guys ever seen that.
Dude, that was on the top of my list. That is one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Yeah,
That's
that's a great movie.
That's the Jim Carrey film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah, okay.
Broderick.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Yeah, so I heard
It
it's
was
good.
actually directed. It was actually directed by Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
Dude, if you like
Fucking-
really dark comedies,
so
that's definitely a good recommendation for
So
you.
fucking good.
Yeah.
Talladega Nights at 3, which I don't know. A lot of this, it's so like personal taste based because Talladega Nights is
Yeah.
extremely silly. I would say that it's on the silliness meter, it's probably on the same level as Step Brothers, but for some reason I just really, really love that movie. Then Walk Hard at 2, which I think is
Walk Hard
okay.
is amazing.
Okay. Okay. You'll probably enjoy hearing me say this. Walk Hard, I think, is the only Judd Apatow film that you've mentioned so far where I can say, okay, yeah, that's a good ass comedy. I really like Walk Hard. Like, there
It
are
sounds
some
like you like. There's probably some old spoofs you'd probably like then too, because it sounds like you like the idea of like making fun of something that already exists. So you
No,
can, like,
I
find humor
to be
in that.
fair though, I like this type of, because I also really like Spinal Tap. I quite enjoy that
That's
one
exactly
as
what
well.
I'm
So
talking about.
yeah, so no, but like Walk Hard to me, like it's really funny. Like in a way, it's kind of like a revolutionary like movie because it was making fun of something that would become super popular like later down the road when shit like Bohemian Rhapsody and like
Yeah, almost like
fucking, like-
Idiocracy type of situation.
yeah, like, and it's the jokes in that are still fucking fun. I think like this is the only Judd Apatow film where I was like consistently laughing because it's so much fun, and I also just like
This
like
is the
this
worst
like
case of somebody being cut in half I've ever seen.
yeah, like the whole like you don't want any part of this, like
Yeah.
you don't want any part of this.
That's
Dewey,
one.
like, all
That's
those
one of the
scenes.
best recurring gags in a comedy movie. It's so fucking
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, and then the scene where like John C. Reilly's character like just becomes Bob Dylan for some reason, and he's singing about like all like the little people or whatever. And I was just like, damn, I don't know who came up with this, but like they deserve like all the money in the world. Like they deserve every raise, every promotion ever.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, so I also wanted to give some shine to Judd Apatow's TV career, because he's actually done a lot of really great
I
TV
was
shows.
actually going to mention that too.
The Ben Stiller show, which I think only lasted a season or two, but if you guys watch any sketches from that, it's really fucking funny. Larry,
I saw.
yeah, go on.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I've never seen the Ben Stiller show, but I did see that one like parody film, that short film that he made. I think it was like a parody of like The Color of Money or something, like the Tom Cruise Martin Scorsese film that he
Are you
did.
talking about Envy?
No, it was
With
about like
Jack
the
Black?
bowler or something. Like he was like a young Tom Cruise type like professional bowler or something like that. I forgot what it was called, but it was basically just a parody of The Color of Money, but instead of like pool, they do bowling or
The
whatever.
one with Woody Harrelson?
I can't, like I said, I can't remember, but I remember something like that. I don't know if it was in the Ben Stiller show, but I remember something like that. But I just thought that was something I should bring up because I quite like it. So
then there's the Larry Sanders Show, which is also hugely
fucking
influential. Freaks and Geeks, that's where a lot of these actors that showed up in his movies 10 years later got their start.
I want to
you
ask
sell
you a
the-
question about Freaks and... You guys have seen it, right?
I actually haven't
Yeah.
seen it, but
Okay.
I know about it a little bit.
Okay, then never mind. Because I was going to ask, like, does it really hold? Because the only things
It
I've ever heard
100%
about this
holds
show,
up.
the only things I've heard about
100%
this show
holds
is like how great it is and how like it's like underappreciated, that it should have been, it should have lasted longer than one season or something like that. Like all I've ever heard is
Amazing
nothing
show.
but great things about it. So yeah, I didn't know if you guys agreed
Great
with that.
characters. I wouldn't even. It's like not. It's like almost like an hour-long drama more so than like a comedy. It's really funny, but like it's more of a drama than anything. But can you sell the Larry Sanders show to everybody?
Yeah, I don't know what
Because
that
I know
is.
There's so
you
many,
know?
I know there's so many young people out there that have no fucking idea what it is,
Me.
and they need to know what it is.
That's me.
Well, it's
Yeah.
basically like a parody of a late night talk show, But I mean, Gary Shandling is probably one of the most talented comedians to ever live, and just it's basically like I don't know, like sort of like a parody of like a David Letterman type of character. I haven't seen it in a long time, but
It's so slept on, but it's actually like a it's up there for me with like The Wire and like all those like amazing dramas from like HBO at the time. Like it's so fucking good.
yeah.
Is it like a parody in the sense that like the Eric Andre like show is like a parody of like those like late
No,
night TV
it's-
shows? Or
It's almost more like a Curb Your Enthusiasm type.
Yeah,
vibe,
it's
more so than-
scripted.
Oh,
It's not like a reality show. Like, I mean, Eric, I don't even know what the fuck you would refer to Eric Andre's show. It's like hyper reality or
whatever
something.
he wants. Just
Yeah.
it's just shit post the show. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what else to describe it. It's just a shit post.
No,
think-
Larry Sanders is scripted, so I wouldn't really compare it to Eric Andre.
Okay. Yeah.
But then,
Yeah. I just wanted to say something about that because
yeah,
nobody's fucking watched it.
and then you got Girls. I don't know if you guys like Girls. I think Girls is one of the funniest TV shows of the 2010s. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Well,
I
Lena
remember
Dunham's
I
so
was-
hard to look at. I just haven't watched it.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah, I remember I was like, I think it was when the show was ending that I decided to give it a watch. I think I must have been like 17 or 18 or something. And I watched like the first 2 episodes and I was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this.
I've heard it's really funny.
It's great.
So I might-
It's really. If I think as a millennial, you'd probably relate to a lot of what's going on. That show is basically like people think that she's creating these super obnoxious, entitled characters as just presenting them as they are, but really what she's doing is mocking all the worst traits that millennials have developed. Like it's
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I see it as a satire. I think that she is totally aware of how insufferable she's writing the characters to be. But I think some people
Yeah.
will watch it and be like, "Oh, she thinks this is just the way
I
that."
think it's like a self-insert type.
Yeah,
thing.
it's really not. I think it's a great show. But
Like
anyway,
a bottoms type
Didn't
of
it give
thing.
yeah,
didn't it give Adam Driver his
yeah,
first
Adam
role?
Driver's first big role too.
Yeah, I remember I saw like clips and I was like, Adam Driver, what are you doing here? Why are you here?
I think so. Going back to like a larger conversation, I wanted to talk a little bit about how comedy. I think I think comedy was killed by memes. Like theatrical comedy was killed by memes and TikTok because before we had all these like short form ways to get bite sized entertainment and laughs and like thing like cultural comedy to share as a society, like movies gave us that in the early 2000s. But as everyone became more hyper online and sucked into the niches of things that they thought were funny specifically, like these broad comedies became less and less popular because people are getting their laughs elsewhere. You know what I mean?
But maybe, but like what's like let's name the last like 10 comedies that came out that had like a $50 million budget or more. Like when are they putting money into comedy?
I mean, I guess I would say the Anyone But You, right? The Sydney Sweeney thing. I guess that's was a popular rom-com. Did that do
Yeah.
well? I don't even know.
I think it did. But I think
just
that
like-
was more just people find Sydney
guess even-
Sweeney.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about the budgets, but it's just like I don't know, dude. Like I just feel like they're not putting like every comedy I see now is just direct to fucking streaming. There's like there's no comedy movies coming out in theaters really that aren't just like an actual like what was that one that came out recently with Ryan Gosling? Like that's kind of a comedy, but it's mostly just an action movie.
With
The Fall
Emily
Guy?
Blunt.
The
Yeah,
Fall
like-
Guy, yeah. So I think like the problem is that like
But that's
there
why I was
hasn't
pushing Please Don't Destroy, by the way. Like, 'cause,
Yeah.
like I want people like them to be able to make movies.
I mean, the fact that Judd Apatow is working with Please Don't Destroy is a perfect exemplification of what I'm talking about. Like he instead of making these huge movies that are defining culture, like The 40-Year-Old Virgin or Step Brothers, I mean, I think it's literally fair to say that those movies built the senses of humor of an entire generation of people. And now he's in the 2020s, he's working with these guys that are basically just like content creators. I mean, they're on SNL, but what they do there is SNL shorts. So
Yeah.
he's
But they're
he's
also
basically
just got
he's making
started,
a work
though,
like effectively he's making a movie with like TikTokers now. You know, like
but
comedy
they
is
also but I don't agree because think they just got started. Like think about like what Seth Rogen's first fucking roles were. Like he was in Freaks and Geeks and he was in Donnie Darko, and he was like a bully in another movie. Like he wasn't Seth Rogen until he was in a few things, right? And that's the same with these guys. Like they need to develop their talent, and just because they made one movie that like is not an amazing like fucking show-stopping comedy doesn't mean that they don't have potential.
no, I mean
think
they
showed
have
it.
they have
think-
potential, but they're never like. Do you really think they're ever going to reach the heights of Paul Rudd, Seth Rogen? Like, do you think they have the
No,
potential?
obviously not,
I
because
think
they're
they'll reach-
not comedic actors. They're just like, oh, they're the guys who make the funny like YouTube poop SNL sketch videos. Like that's really like
I don't agree.
they excel at that, but like I'm not like when I think of like, oh, who are we gonna cast in this like next like mega comedy like all-star like shit, you know, like those guys are not the people who I think of, you know, like
I don't agree. Like think about the early the early Lonely Island stuff. They had little fucking 2-minute sketches where they're just doing a silly song on SNL, and they did that for like 2 years before they even got a movie. Like you have to give people time to actually develop that talent. It's the same with like comedians. They have to go and like bomb for fucking years at a comedy fucking theater before they're actually making something like a good stand-up routine. Like you can't just immediately judge them like that. Like
I mean, some
think they got a
people just
movie.
have like a natural like comedic talent to them, you know, like you don't like.
But
I
you
feel
don't
like
think that
I like something
I think
great.
their delivery was really good. I think the script wasn't perfect, but I think their deliveries were really good. I think they acted really well. I don't understand why.
I disagree, but
No,
that's
Nick,
a whole can of words.
I
yeah.
totally agree with you, and I think those guys are extremely talented. They all have great comedic timing and obviously great comedic sensibilities. I think I didn't love the movie. I think the movie was a little bit too.
Yeah,
it was a little
I
bit too
completely-
juvenile. I think, but I think they have the
completely understand
potential.
that.
They have the potential to make a good movie. I'm just saying I don't think culture will allow them to be the big comedic film stars that we had back in the 2000s, just because comedy in film it really doesn't have a place in
Yeah, because you have to keep
cinematic
in
culture
mind that
anymore.
because you have to keep in mind that like the way that comedies in general are made, like within today's like film landscape, has changed tremendously. Like you can't like these days you can't just like make a movie where like Seth Rogen and his friends just make like dick and fart jokes and then spend
But
like
they just
$40 million on that. You know, like when you think about some of the best like comedies. When you think about some of the best comedies, like we're primarily thinking about them in two ways: either as like prestige TV shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm or The White Lotus or something like that, or as small like indie films like Bottoms or this year's Hundreds of Beavers. I still haven't seen the film, but from what I understand, it's a really great movie. You know, so
you're being directly negated by the movie I just recommended. They just did that. They made a movie with a bunch of friends. All of those people were their friends. Those two other chicks in the movie were their friends. They brought them in. Imagine those guys had a good script that somebody else wrote for them even. Like they could make a good fucking movie that does something very similar to like Hot Rod and all those other movies.
Also, you have to keep in mind it was like straight to their piss penis like streaming service. Like no one's gonna watch that shit because they did that. Like
that's because they saw the movie before they released it. If that movie was really fucking good, I think it would have gotten at the.
But Nick, don't you? I just think the demand for a Hot Rod is gone. Like there's no, people don't even want that anymore. So those guys can make a little movie like Foggy Mountain.
Yeah, why go see a pure comedy movie when you can just go see a Marvel movie and just see like the funny raccoon say a funny thing like for like half an hour? Like it's basically. I'm not saying I want that. I'm saying like that's like the mindset where it's like, why should we go see a comedy movie? Yeah.
One of the most popular shows on air right now is The Righteous Gemstones. The Righteous Gemstones is a fucking silly, stupid comedy that is really fucking well made.
I really like it too. Yeah.
But it's one of the most popular fucking shows on right now. Like there is a need for it.
But
people want it.
All right, but
the issue is there's nothing good being made.
So, but I just want, if we can all agree with this premise, like the 2010s and the late 2010s to the 2020s, the comedy landscape in film is much more desolate than it was back in the 2000s. Like, can you agree to that?
100% agree.
So why? But all right, so
yeah.
let's try to figure out why that is. Like, why has it changed so much?
It's hard to say. I think there was a big shift in like culture, as like where like things were faux pas. People were afraid of being canceled for a while. Like a lot of comedians were going through that, where they like every comedian was getting fucking canceled for like 5 years. And I think that's being toned down a little bit now. Like I'm not going to blame cancel culture entirely for it, obviously, but like I think that had a big impact in like Will Ferrell couldn't just go in and make a bunch of the same jokes he used to be able to make, right? And so I think that's part of a big reason why he kind of took a producing like back step, right? He's not in as many movies anymore. And I think like you'll notice that a lot of these people, like we assume that a lot of their movies are just shitty, but if you look at, like, I was taking a look the other day at Will Ferrell's movie history, he hasn't actually acted in anything in a long time.
Yeah.
Like sure, Hobbs or Watson and Holmes was fucking absolute piss.
I heard it was ass, yeah.
Yeah, but like, don't you think if that movie, even being ass, if that movie came out in 2008, it would have fucking done like gangbusters
it would have sold like hotcakes. Yeah, which is why like I think like it's a combination of like the landscape of comedy has changed, you know, and also like and what people find funny, like especially like I guess Zoomers and like young people like find funny, which I guess like I'm part of the demographic.
But explain why everything Danny McBride puts out
is great. Yeah, no, I really liked Vice Principals. I really liked the Righteous Gemstones. Like I'm just saying,
but explain to me why those are successful if the comedy landscape has completely changed.
Well, they're successful, but they're nowhere near as successful as the 40-Year-Old Virgin or
like I don't
Brothers.
really like when I think about like, oh, what are the hot ass like HBO shows that people are talking about? You know, like people are talking about Succession or House of the Dragon or something like that. Like no one is talking about like Righteous Gemstones. It seems to be getting enough attention where like they're going to be making another season, but it's like it's not really the top show that like everyone really talks about. You know, like
maybe we need to look into the numbers a little little more. I could be wrong.
Maybe,
but I've had
yeah.
a ton of people bring it up. To me.
And Culture Nick also mentioned like the TikTok YouTube thing. Like I would be a fool if I didn't bring that up, because you got to be real. Like that does play a factor into like what
I
people
agree.
find funny, or just like how they get entertainment in general. You know, like people just
I think
really
that has-
like YouTube poop 30-second short like shit posts. You know, like that's just funny, and people would rather consume that than go see Seth Rogen talk about his penis for the 700th time while high on weed, you know, on whatever movie he's in, you know, like some people just find that funnier than others. I'm not saying that's more inherently funnier than that. All I'm saying is like, I think there's so much content when it comes to comedy you can produce, you know, like Netflix is like spamming like, stand-up specials like it's like they're fucking hotcakes, you know.
Yeah.
There's so many like comedy. There's so many
Stand-up is
comedy
super
I
podcasts.
completely agree.
Yeah, there's so many comedy podcasts, you know, like the Mark Maron like podcast and Conan O'Brien like podcasts, stand-up specials on like Netflix and streaming services, and then there's like YouTube and like TikTok and
I think
stuff.
a lot of it.
Yeah,
And I think you're probably right, where like a lot of the like TikTok stuff has taken over, and I think, but I don't think it's specific to comedy necessarily, because I think people nowadays are generally seeing less movies altogether, at least in theaters, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
and
I
theaters.
think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people, especially like the way that Timmy reacted to Step Brothers and a lot of the Judd Apatow movies is really telling to me. Like as someone that's younger, I feel like the format of a comedy movie where you know you're going to get a joke every 90 seconds, they're going to insert like some kind of emotionally tugging at your heartstrings plot line that's supposed to make you feel something, like that format for people that are younger than 30, like people teens to 25, I think that format is just corny almost. Like they would rather have the authenticity of somebody just making a short on TikTok, or you know, watching a podcast where people are just being real with each other. Like I think people are starting to crave authenticity more, and the format of those Judd Apatow comedies is feeling really played out. I don't know.
But you also
No,
have to
I
keep
could
in
agree
mind,
with that, too.
you should not
I
use
don't
me
want
as
the
like,
same old thing though.
yeah, you should not use me as like a reference point. Like I thank you for making me the symbol of all Zoomers, but you should not use me as a reference point for that, because I also recognize that I have a very specific sense of humor. Like my taste in like comedy is like very specific, you know. Like I mentioned a lot of like animation, like that's kind of where a lot of my humor comes from. Like if I'm thinking about what I found the funniest within the past like 2 or 3 years, like it was honestly an anime. It was an anime called The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, Really Love You. Like, I found that hilarious, and I guess that would be like the funniest thing I've seen within the past couple of years. But I'm not like expecting other people to agree with me and be like, yes, that anime really hilarious. I agree. Like, I'm not expecting anyone to like agree with me on that. So like, I recognize that like I'm very specific when it comes to this stuff. You know, like I haven't finished all of Smiling Friends, but like Smiling Friends is also another thing that's like very much my sense of humor, where it's like, yes, I find this hilarious. I find this very funny. This is like really what I like. This is the sense of humor that really speaks to me.
Did you
yeah.
connect with
I also
that
feel-
authenticity comment that I made at all? Like, do you feel that there's a lack of
yeah.
authenticity in the Judd Apatow style?
100%, yeah. And I would say like, yeah, a lot of Judd Apatow's films like lack any sort of authenticity. It feels like it doesn't. I mean, I don't want to say like his films are like hokey or like he's a hack or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. I guess like what I'm saying is like when I watch one of his movies, I just get very little out of them, you know, from either a narrative or a comedic like standpoint, you know. And if I don't get anything out of either, then what else is there left to experience? It's like watching a horror movie that isn't scary. Like if I'm not finding anything scary, then like what the fuck else am I supposed to take away from this, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll say, I think something that is, I'll agree with Timmy. I don't think he is the perfect example for the younger generation in terms of like what they find funny. I think because there are a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of the like younger people I talk to are also like into movies, right? Like because they're from the Discord and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
But I've talked to like a lot of those people, and they like old comedies. I think the biggest thing nowadays, and people who are listening or in the comments, y'all can fucking call me out for this if I'm wrong, but like I think people are less willing to go watch older movies nowadays. And I think if a lot of the younger generation would go back and watch some of these older comedies like Walk Hard, like all these like good comedies that we've mentioned in this podcast, I think they would find them really good. But I think the younger generation is opposed to watching like old or like dusty movies, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's in general. I think that I think if you took a 20-year-old and showed them Superbad and they actually sat down and got past the first 5 minutes, they would fucking love it.
Sure. Yeah.
I just don't think they're doing that. I think they're like, I'm gonna watch what's new, I'm gonna watch what my friends are talking about, or I'm gonna watch TikTok.
I think people just prefer like comedy movies that still transcend time and still are still funny and still like culturally relevant. Like let's be real, like 90% of Judd Apatow's movies are like dated. Like his most recent film, The Bubble, was already dated like the minute it got like shat on Netflix. Like no one even thinks about that movie, no one even talks about that movie. And you think about a movie like, say, like, I don't know, like Shrek or something. Like Shrek is still to this day memed. It is still like talked about and discussed about. And it's not just because like, haha, like Shrek is funny. Like Shrek has a lot of meme potential. It's also Shrek in of itself is still a very entertaining, like hilarious movie to watch. You know, like it's all about like what kind of movie and what kind of comedy specifically you're talking about.
No,
I
think that lends itself to the point I'm making. Is like, I think comedy just isn't a genre people care about nowadays because there's no good comedies. I think if there was like sick comedies coming out by people, they would be like, oh, I want to watch what they fucking did in the past. If Will Ferrell fucking dropped a banger of a fucking movie next year, everybody be like, oh, I'm gonna go watch his older fucking movies. I'm gonna go watch Step Brothers.
But the reason why comedies aren't being made is because there was a slew of comedy, like, you know, a lot of those Kevin Hart, The Rock movies that came out that didn't really do that well. I mean, the industry responds to people's tastes. If they see that they're putting out movies that are a specific genre of movies that's kind of falling out of favor with the general audience, like they're going to stop making them, which is why I think they've stopped making comedies. And there are a lot of
money talks.
There are a lot of reasons for that. I mean, personally, I really do think a lot of it has to do with like internet comedy. I mean, stand-up comedy is seeing a huge renaissance right now. Like there's short clips of Shane Gillis and Stavros Halkias doing like crowd work. I think
we're just
like
waiting for the right people, guys. Like honestly, like whenever Shane Gillis starts stepping into feature films, I think we're gonna have some really fucking funny movies.
Well, he just put out a short. Did you guys watch his?
It's actually
Tires,
good.
Yeah,
Tires.
Yeah.
I watched it all.
Yeah, it's good.
It's really funny.
I didn't see it. Yeah,
and I think that's why I'm pushing the Please Don't Destroy. Not because I think that it's fucking amazing. I just think there are people coming up now that are going to be making those next movies that we've been waiting for. Like I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think there's Shane Gillis. There's his sketch comedy is really funny. There's people that are going to be in these movies in the next 5 years, and they're going to be great. I think comedy is going to come back.
I just think that those kinds of comedy movies are just so samey, and it's why like no one wants to go see them or like give a shit because they're just so samey and like so bland and repetitive. Like no one cares, you know. Like there's a reason why something like say like Monty Python
comedy is going to
like
change though.
There's a reason why something like Monty Python or Mr. Bean is like still being talked about and still relevant because like that's comedy that's like almost like 30 to 50 years old and it's still being talked about today. Like Monty Python, The Holy Grail, and Life of Brian, and all these other movies, like they're still like being heralded as these like comedy classics because their sense of humor like has remained relevant since then because they transpired like time barriers and stuff, you know, like compared to like.
No, I agree, and we're just waiting for the people that can recreate that effect, right?
Sure, yeah.
Nobody's making that shit right now. I don't know. I could be just completely rattling shit off, but that's how I feel. I feel like I wanted to bring it up because I feel like they are if it's not them, somebody is going to come out in the next couple of years and they're going to be putting out comedies that are fucking hilarious.
Yeah,
sure. I think like TV also like TV gives like especially streaming shows like gives like comedic creatives like a lot more like freedom and a lot more like leeway into like exploring a lot of concepts they have in mind. Like there's a show that I've been meaning to watch that I haven't seen but I heard is really good is I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a great that's kind of more in the Eric Andre mold, I think, of absurdist comedy.
It's sketch comedy, so I wouldn't really consider it the same thing, but still very.
I mean that's hugely popular. That with Zoomers especially. I feel like Zoomers love that shit.
Yeah, I think like, and
very
also like
clickable.
you got to think about like what people find who specifically gravitate towards. You know, like people like Tim and Eric sketches, or like Eric Andre or Jackass or something like that. You know, like those still have a universal appeal because at the end of the day, like they're comedy that's very simple, which is just people getting kicked in the balls or like doing absurdist shit or whatever. Like Jackass isn't complex. It doesn't require much thought. It's just haha, Johnny Knoxville gets hit by a bull, or haha, Johnny Knoxville gets hammered in the balls, something like that. It's simple, and that's all I think the best comedy should really strive to be, like not everyone can be an Edgar Wright, and that's fine.
I don't even think that's why Jackass is so beloved. I think like the friendship between the dudes, and like I think the people themselves are what make it good. I think somebody else could go do the same things in Jackass and it wouldn't be near as
Yeah, I guess
successful,
that's fair.
even
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
at this point, those guys are so iconic that people are. I think people want to see crazy shit, but they also just want to see those guys because they're so beloved.
Like I don't think there's ever gonna be another Jackass in the same way.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Sure.
Like you saw Loiter Squad fucking do nothing, and Tyler the Creator is fucking hugely popular.
Yeah.
So, quick side note: this has nothing to do with anything, but did you guys know that Spike Jonze is like involved in the Jackass like series as like a producer or whatever?
Yeah,
Like in
yeah,
Grandpa and all that
he's
stuff?
been involved with it since the beginning.
Yeah,
It's
because
like
he was originally like a skate like video. He did
Yeah.
skate videos
I
and
just think
shit.
it's crazy. It's like, oh, the guy who directed some of my favorite movies of all time, like Adaptation and Her, is just also involved in this, and I just think that's just the funniest shit ever.
Yeah.
super sick.
Yeah.
Spike Jonze is a badass.
I love
Yeah.
Spike Jonze.
I have one thing I want to do for Timmy though.
Okay.
All right. So I want you to rate these 6 directors 1 through 6, but you can't change the order. All right.
Okay.
All right. So first we got Paul W.S. Anderson.
Okay. What do you want me
You gotta
to
rate
give?
him.
Give me a rate.
You gotta give the rating. You gotta give the rating before I give you the rest of them.
One
I
out
really
of 10?
don't like where. Some of his movies are like teeter on the edge of like this is funny bad, Like I remember when I was watching all the Predator movies for my Predator video. I didn't talk about the Alien versus Predator movies, but I saw them anyway, and I remember the first Alien versus Predator just being like, wow, this is the dumbest shit ever, and this is really hilarious, Like a lot of his movies are like that. So, I guess like 2. Wait, what did you want me to rate them out of
It's
10?
1 through 6. So keep in mind there could be some really good directors. in
Okay,
there. You don't know.
let me just keep him out of 5 and then see where we go from there.
Okay, so we got Paul at 5. All right, so the next one is going to be Ridley Scott.
4.
All right, we got 4 for.
I don't know if
Ridley Scott.
this is definitely a hot take. I think Ridley Scott has made like 2 good movies in his life, and the rest are either like mid or bad. I don't connect with Ridley Scott as a filmmaker whatsoever.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah. So
Okay. All right, and then we got David Lynch.
I'll put him at 2. I've only seen 3 of his films, but I know that he's a director that's like I'm gonna really connect with, and I think he's very special. So
Okay. Next we have Brett Ratner.
fuck. Unironically, 3.
What?
I think I would sooner go see a Brett Ratner movie than see a Ridley Scott movie. Because at the very least, because like, okay, because let me say this. Say what you want about Brett Ratner, and there's a lot to say about him. At least his movies are quick and short, like in and out, easy. Like even if they're the worst shit ever, at least I don't have to sit there like for fucking ever. It's not like Napoleon where I had to sit for like 3 hours or something like that to just get to the part where like I'm familiar with on Wikipedia about the guy. Like I'd rather just sit through something short and shitty than sit through something super long and super boring. So
If you're watching a Brett Ratner movie, you're basically just watching what the art by committee, whatever the fucking
Yeah.
studio tells him to do.
But like some of his movies have a lot of like meme potential. Like X-Men: The Last Stand is like really fucking funny. It's not like good, but like it's like hilarious and like how it like tries and like fails so poorly. You know, like I'm the juggernaut, bitch. You know, like shit like that is just I don't know how you can not laugh at that. You know,
I do. I actually really like that movie.
But I will say, like, I think the Rush Hour films are some of the most overrated movies fucking ever. I don't like the Rush Hour movies whatsoever. But I'm biased when I say that because I grew up with a lot of Jackie Chan's old Hong Kong stuff, so like they were never really going to appeal to me anyway.
I have too much nostalgia to talk shit about those
Brett
movies.
Ratner over Ridley Scott might be the hottest take that ever comes out of this podcast.
I managed to piss off both like the normies and also like the pretentious douchebags in this entire single episode, and I feel very proud about that.
All right, next we have Roman Polanski.
I guess one. So
All right.
I've only seen 2 of his movies. I know I need to see more of his stuff. So I mean, the guy's not like a good person, but he does make good movies. So I think Chinatown was the last film I saw from him. Very, very great movie. I really like that one.
Chinatown's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, the last one is going to be Woody Allen.
Oh,
you have to put him at 6.
Which I'm happy with, honestly.
Really?
So-
Woody at 6?
so-
Brett Ratner over Woody Allen. What the fuck?
I can't really change any of these rankings now, can I? But to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of Woody Allen films. I've seen like 3, and I didn't like either of them. But to be fair,
so I'm gonna
2 of them.
I had ulterior motives with this list. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay.
So 3 of those people were pedos, and my goal was to try and get them in the top 3 of your list because I knew you hated Ridley Scott.
Which one did I get? Oh wait, I did get. I got 2 out of 3. I got.
So you have 2. You have 2 out of 3 pedos in your list.
Nice. Yeah, but I did have Woody. I did have Woody Allen at the end of my list, so I feel like that should compensate for something.
That's true. He is the biggest of the pedos. So.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I've only seen like
that bullet.
I've only seen 3 Woody Allen films, and 2 of them aren't even in like his supposed I've only seen one of his supposed good movies, and I did not. I thought it was so fucking obnoxious. I think it was. No, I still haven't seen that.
Good.
I saw Midnight in Paris, and I thought it was the most like this is the most white person movie fucking ever. Like I found it so obnoxious.
I watched that movie on a cruise, and I was really drunk, so I don't actually remember it.
I haven't seen his supposed like masterpieces. I still haven't seen Annie Hall or Manhattan or Blue Jasmine or anything like that. I'll watch them at some point.
Blue Jasmine. Oh, the 3 you just named are fucking incredible. Talk about great comedy movies. I think Woody Allen might be the best comedy director of all time. And writer.
You like Blue Jasmine? You said
I love Blue Jasmine, Annie Hall, Manhattan.
Okay,
I have not seen Blue Jasmine. I have seen Annie Hall, and I've seen Manhattan, but I was a kid, so I don't remember.
What Woody Allen movies, Culture Nick, would you say like are like essential viewing? So I already have like Annie Hall, Manhattan, and Blue Jasmine on my watch list.
Right?
The 3 I just named would be the most essential. I think.
I heard Match Point was decent.
Match Point isn't really a comedy, but it's a great kind of like psychological thriller.
Okay, and I heard Crimes and Misdemeanors, I think it was called. I heard that one was good. I'll probably add that to my watch list at some point.
It's like Hannah and her. I think it's called Hannah and Her Sisters. That's a great one.
Okay.
I haven't seen any of these. I need to watch some.
I know Ants isn't technically a Woody Allen movie, but I did see that one. So there you go.
Did he direct Ants?
No, he was in Ants.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Ants is sick.
Along with Sylvester Stallone and Sharon Stone and Gene Hackman and Christopher Walken for some reason.
Our goal should be to get Brett Ratner.
Badass.
I mean, obviously, we're going to make a short out of this. We have to get Brett Ratner to see this. That we respect his filmmaking so much.
You guys, I know, Nick, you're going to take this out of context with the short, so I'm just going to run with it. Brett Ratner, if you're listening right now, I'm on your side, buddy. I'm your biggest supporter. I put you on my number 3 spot of my top 5 favorite directors of all time. You deserve freedom, baby. Like, I got you, Brett. So
didn't he move to like Jerusalem or something?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm gonna say stop touching little boys or whatever it is you did. Or if you didn't do anything, I'm sorry. Don't.
No, he definitely did something. Let me look up his Wikipedia page or whatever.
I mean, he probably was hanging out with Bryan Singer, so who the fuck knows what they were up to?
The other that's the boy toucher. Bryan Singer is the one who was touching little boys. So I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I rewatched Entourage recently, and Brett Ratner showed up in it.
Sounds about right.
Girls is basically the, like, millennial girl version of Entourage, but I personally get a lot out of Girls. I think it's a great show.
What is Entourage
Entourage is
about? Like
amazing.
I've heard like
It's
things about
basically-
Entourage,
it's-
but I never knew what it's about.
It's basically
Like,
just
This actor
being
moves to LA, brings his best friends, and they all just have shenanigans.
it's basically just being cool, having a big dick, being an actor, and fucking. That's what it's about.
oh,
It's basically what Mark Wahlberg's life
it's
as a show.
really why Mark Wahlberg in
It's
particular?
really it's
Because the main
he
character
produced
is
it,
an
it's actually
actor.
based on him. Yeah.
oh,
Well, no, Mark Wahlberg produced it, and they actually used a lot of like the things that happened to him as like stories in the show.
you're telling me there's
it's,
an
like, loosely
episode
based
where
on Mark
a
Wahlberg.
character that the Mark Wahlberg character like chases after Vietnamese like teenagers with a brick?
No, there's not. But
Oh my god.
Mark Wahlberg ends up in the show in regular cameos.
Is there a scene where
As
Mark
himself.
Wahlberg harasses people of color and then says, "No, it doesn't count because I
he said
love
he was
Jesus
sorry,
now."
He said he was sorry. If we can forgive Brett Ratner, we can forgive Mark Wahlberg.
It's
We can
actually
forgive
about-
anyone at that point. Yeah.
It's about Mark Wahlberg being Aquaman. Right? Isn't
yeah,
that what
sure.
he
He
plays Aquaman
does
in that
become
movie, right?
Aquaman,
That's like
yeah.
a big plot point.
Yeah, Entourage is very much a sexist, fucking lame ass show, but it's so.
It's
fucking
the
funny.
it's the
guy who-
ultimate frat bro show.
Yeah, I was gonna say it
It's
seems
so
like just
funny.
like frat bros the show basically. Like this is what it seems like. And I know they like released like a movie that like everyone fucking hated or something. Like I heard it was awful.
I thought it was good. I mean, it ended the show like because the show didn't have a very good ending, so it kind of was just like an episode.
Oh, it's the end of Evangelion, but for frat bros. Gotcha. Now I understand. You should have just said that from the beginning.
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't seen Evangelion, so you know what I'm saying.
Did you just say Evangelion?
Whatever the fuck, dude. I'm not a weeb, bro. We went over this in the first episode.
I know this is going on forever, but I swear this is the last thing. So I recently rewatched Boogie Nights the other day, and I think, like, honest to God, I think this is the only movie where I can tolerate Mark Wahlberg, because I do not think I like Mark Wahlberg in literally anything else, like regardless of the quality of the movie, because Mark Wahlberg to me is almost like someone like The Rock, where he just doesn't play characters, he just plays himself. Like, but
Yeah.
somehow he has like less charisma than The Rock. So like,
You're just wrong. In his early, he's very much like Tom Cruise type, where he like used to try and now he doesn't anymore.
well, the difference between him and Tom Cruise is like Tom Cruise is actually in like shit people would watch. Like, I don't know when the last time like Mark Wahlberg was like relevant since like fucking whatever number
if you-
Transformers
but if-
movie that he was in.
I mean, don't you think Paul Thomas Anderson can get a fucking great performance out of basically anyone?
Oh yeah, if he can get a great performance out of Mark Wahlberg, he could literally get a great performance out of like you get a great performance out of like a 2-year-old. Like that's how great of a director Paul Thomas Anderson is.
Yeah.
Like if Marky Mark can deliver a great performance that isn't just like his usual Marky Mark shtick, then anything can happen, really. Like
I'm trying to think of his other movies, and maybe you're right. Like maybe you are right.
I
I'm
mean,
trying to
like,
think of, like,
here's
give
the thing, like something like say like The Departed. Like The Departed is a good movie, but like when I see Marky Mark like open his mouth in that film, like I don't see his character. I just see Marky Mark. I like him like being this like Bostonian like rude asshole who curses a lot. Like that's just Marky Mark. That's just Mark Wahlberg. I don't know what the difference is between that and just like his character. You know?
I mean, he's
think you might be
functional in
right.
that
He did-
movie.
he
I
was
wouldn't
good
say
in-
that he like sticks out like a sore
don't know if
thumb
you-
or anything.
He
in
got
The
a Best
Departed.
Supporting Actor
Yeah.
nomination for some reason for that film. I don't know why, but there you go.
I don't know if you've seen the movie. I don't know if you've seen the movie Fear from like a billion years ago. That movie, he's actually good in it, but he was also like 12 years old.
He's good.
Oh,
He's good in Ted when they steal a vial of Tom
he's-
Brady's
he's
semen.
definitely. Oh no, Rockstar. Have you seen Rockstar?
No, I haven't seen it.
You'd actually really like that movie. It has him and Jennifer Aniston, and he's like basically like becoming like a rock star or whatever.
Okay.
And it's like him just like living on the road and shit. Fucking good as fucking.
I cannot imagine Mark Wahlberg as a rock star. Did he
Does
like
a
learn
fucking
how to
good
play
job.
guitar
Rockstar's
and stuff for
badass.
the?
I actually don't know, and I haven't seen it in a really long time, and I'm going to rewatch it tonight.
Damn.
I can't imagine Mark Wahlberg as anything other than just Mark Wahlberg. Like literally, I'm honest to God, I'm not even joking. The most authentic Mark Wahlberg has been ever in a movie other than Boogie Nights is when he like opened the beer can in Transformers 4 using like the dude's like car or whatever. That is literally the only, and like he drinks the beer in front of like the guy or whatever. That is seriously the only moment where I felt any sort of authenticity from Mark Wahlberg, and it was a fucking basically a beer commercial like jammed into a Transformers movie.
I'm not going to defend any of those movies. I'm not going to defend most of his work at all, but I enjoy him.
I
think he's much more
I
entertaining
have
than,
a
like,
lot to
The
say
Rock and
about
shit.
the Transformers movies, but I actually would like to save that for future Michael Bay focused episodes because I have a lot to say about Michael Bay as a American auteur. I have a very love-hate relationship with Michael Bay's like filmography and creative voice as a director, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Also, before we sign off, I just wanted to I wanted to ask you guys because I found out that one of you Stuckmanized my girlfriend, and I just want to figure out which one of you it was.
What the fuck does that even mean?
Are we just going to shit talk Chris Stuckman every episode? Because I'm game.
I just want to get Stuckmanized, and I feel like
Dude, I would...
we need to the world I feel needs more Stuckmanization.
So should we all just look
Yeah.
into the camera, I guess you two, and just to the count of 3, just say, get Stuckmanized on 3?
Hell yeah, let's do it.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Get Stuckmanized.
Stuckmanized.
Fuck yeah.